Apple went from a garage startup to a trillion-dollar empire. But after the iPhone 17, cracks began to show. What happened? Hi, I'm Tomo, your guide to the world of powerful brands. Today's topic is Apple's rise and fall. Today, Apple is more than a company. It's a cultural icon. With a market value in the trillions, Apple is the world's biggest tech giant, and possibly most profitable in history. But Apple's story isn't just about sleek gadgets. It's about vision, failure, reinvention, and a little bit of marketing magic. So, how did Apple conquer the world? Apple's story begins in 1976 in a garage in Cupertino, California. Two college dropouts, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, built a computer called the Apple I. It looked like a wooden box with wires sticking out, but it worked. Soon after came the Apple II, one of the first mass-produced personal computers, and suddenly, Apple was a player in Silicon Valley. Oh, and fun fact, they called it Apple, partly because Jobs liked the fruit, and partly so the name would appear before Atari in the phone book. Smart and a little petty. In 1980, Apple went public, making millionaires overnight. Then came the Macintosh in 1984, famously launched with a Super Bowl ad that looked like a Hollywood movie. But not all was shiny. The Apple Lisa, one of their first attempts at a graphical computer, flopped because it was too expensive. By the late 1980s, Windows PCs dominated the market. Apple's sales fell. Management was messy. And in 1985, Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. Yes, the guy who built Apple got kicked out. Ouch. The 1990s were rough. Apple launched products like the Newton, an early tablet that barely recognized handwriting, and computers that were colorful but confusing. Meanwhile, Microsoft was taking over the world with Windows. Apple was losing money fast. By 1997, it was on the brink of collapse. In fact, Apple was 90 days away from bankruptcy. Imagine, the company behind the iPhone almost didn't survive the 90s. Then came the plot twist. In 1997, Apple bought Jobs' new company, Next, and brought him back as CEO. Jobs slashed the product line, focused on design, and simplified the brand. And he convinced Microsoft to invest $150 million in Apple to keep it alive. Yes, Bill Gates saved Steve Jobs' company. Talk about rivals with benefits. This is where the magic happened. In 1998, Jobs introduced the iMac, a colorful, friendly computer that looked like candy. People loved it. Then came the iPod in 2001. Suddenly, you didn't need a CD player. You could carry 1,000 songs in your pocket. But the real game changer? 2007, the iPhone. A phone, an iPod, and an internet device all in one. It completely redefined how we live, work, and play. Followed by the iPad in 2010, Apple had created an ecosystem, devices that worked seamlessly together. Competitors made gadgets. Apple built lifestyles. Apple's marketing deserves its own chapter. While other tech ads screamed about specs, gigabytes, processors, screen size, Apple kept it simple. Elegance, design, emotion. The Think Different campaign in 1997 wasn't selling computers. It was selling a philosophy. The iPod ads? Just dancing silhouettes with headphones. Genius. Apple stores? More like temples for technology, where people didn't just shop, they experienced the brand. And of course, Steve Jobs' legendary product launches. Black turtleneck, jeans, and a stage presence that made new gadgets feel like rock concerts. But let's be clear, Apple had its share of missteps. Remember AntennaGate in 2010, when iPhone 4 lost signal if you held it the wrong way? Or the $1,000 stand for a computer monitor? Critics had a field day. And Apple still faces scrutiny over App Store fees, product pricing, and competition with Samsung and Google. But here's the twist. Even controversies keep Apple in the headlines. Which, in marketing terms, isn't always a bad thing. Unlike Microsoft, which focused on software, Apple mastered the art of hardware-software integration. Unlike Samsung, which floods the market with dozens of models, Apple sticks to a few. but makes them iconic. And globally, Apple is massive. The US and Europe love iPhones. Japan is obsessed with Apple, and even in markets like China, Apple commands a premium brand image. This isn't just tech dominance, it's cultural dominance. So, what can entrepreneurs and business leaders learn from Apple's rise? Simplicity wins. Don't overwhelm customers with choices. Give them clarity. Brand is everything. Apple sells identity, not just products. Timing matters. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone, but it was the first right smartphone. Failure fuels growth. Being 90 days from bankruptcy made Apple laser-focused. Ecosystems lock loyalty. Once you're in Apple's world, you rarely leave. But even giants stumble. In recent years, Apple faced criticism that its innovation engine was running on fumes. The iPhone 17, released with great anticipation, turned out to be, well, a little too familiar. Sure, it had a faster chip, a slightly better camera, and some AI-powered features, but for many consumers, it felt like déjà vu. The excitement that once had people camping outside Apple stores for days was fading, and Wall Street noticed. Apple's stock price dipped sharply as investors worried that the company was relying too much on the iPhone without a next big thing in sight. Meanwhile, competitors like Samsung, Huawei, and up-and-coming startups began pushing bold innovations, foldable phones, groundbreaking AI integration. Apple, once the trendsetter, now looked like it was playing catch-up. So what happened? Here are a few lessons from Apple's recent struggles. Innovation must be relentless. Yesterday's breakthrough is today's expectation. Don't rely too heavily on one product. For Apple, the iPhone was both its crown jewel and its crutch. Consumer loyalty isn't infinite. Even the most devoted fans want to be surprised. Markets punish complacency. Stock prices reflect not just profits, but potential, and investors smelled stagnation. Apple's story proves that no empire is invincible. From the highs of redefining technology to the lows of struggling with innovation, Apple's journey is still unfolding. Whether it can reignite the magic, or whether another company will take its crown, remains the trillion-dollar question. But one thing is certain. Apple's rise and its recent stumble will be studied in business schools, boardrooms, and startups for decades. It's a reminder that in technology, as in life, you're only as good as your next idea. And maybe, just maybe, the next big thing isn't a phone, but something that makes us forget phones altogether. Until then, Apple might just have to bite into some humble pie. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Hit the like button if you learned something new. Subscribe to join our growing community, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you're the first to know when a new video drops.